All right, g'day, welcome back. And if everything seems like it's happening at once, it's because I was talking to the game without having recording enabled. So here we are. A few things are happening. Firstly, an event fired, which caused this giant mega Xeno Godzilla-like thing to climb out of the ocean in the basically a reprise of Cthulhu mythology and just try and destroy Dallas. Fortunately, because the event it spawned at 70% health, so I'm hoping that the United States military, which is rapidly redeploying to the location, should be able to destroy it. We'll just send the Marines as well. Fortunately for us as well, local provinces can defend themselves in Terra Invicta quite well. How well they defend themselves depends on a couple of things: how cohesive the country is, its military tech, and its level of unrest, I believe. So while the United States is at a mid-level of cohesion and a very high mil tech level, it means that taking Texas here, like Texas has got to be one of the hardest provinces on the planet to take right now. The only way it could be tougher is if it was rugged. As it is, it's not mountainous. It's its only disadvantage. So that's happening over in America. We're killing Godzilla. Over here, actually no. Second point is we have managed to turn a counselor to our side, Dailun Yang of the Servants. When you turn someone, two things happen. You get access to all the intel on their faction, and you get the ability to control how often he automatically fails missions. I've turned that to 0 so that he doesn't deliberately fail, because I'd rather he not be detected. The more you make them fail, the more their faction gets suspicious and the greater chance they get found out. So he now appears as a turned agent on my menu. That means I now have access to everything I could want to know about the servants. You see, penetrated here. I know what technology they're currently researching. They're researching alien technology and shipyard. I know everything that they've researched so far. Most things here look relatively simple. They've researched Nerva Drive. Interesting. I should go steal Nerva Drive from them. That'd be nice. Save me some research. We know their relations already. Their objective is learn the alien language. So they can't talk to the aliens yet. They're learning how to do it, and we know their resources for sure. And then you have the location of all of their counselors. So all of their people are now visible to us on the map. One of them is hanging out here in Romania, and they're hanging out with another xenoform, this friendly chap, xenoform alpha 1. So of course we're going to do the logical thing. We're going to go and grab xenoform alpha 1 and shoot it. Detaining aliens as humanity first, I think, as most factions until later on at the very least. Detaining an alien then kills it. You don't just release it the same way you do for a human. So that's a great accomplishment. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and find a protectorate. My next goal is to now find a protectorate agent and try and turn them, because I want full intelligence on everything the protectorate is doing. I could compromise a second servant agent, but there's really no point. There's a strategic decision to be made here over who you use in your turn counselor slots. You can only have eyes on two factions at once. For Humanity First, I think the answer is really simple. Turn one member of the Servants, one member of the Protectorate, and try and maintain that as long as possible. So there we are. I'm launching an action against this alien. I'm destroying some xenoflora. I'm advising the United States. I'm going to rebalance India in terms of priorities. I've been thinking about this, and I actually think pushing the Indian economy up is more important than pushing education development and welfare immediately. So I'm actually going to shave some points from down here. This is going to slow down the reduction in inequality, which is currently high, which is a problem. But I'm going to push up the GDP per capita, because I'm currently getting an increase of GDP per capita of $11 every time I complete. Plus I get a bonus of like 70-odd%. So this should grow the Indian economy very, very quickly, which, given the number of people in India, means that the aggregate economy will grow, the number of investment points will grow, and we can then use those to buy welfare and knowledge investment. So that's my gamble. Economic slingshot, development first, and then equalize. The opposite to the approach with the United States, where the goal was solve the cohesion and inequality problems first, and then build up the economy. We've just gone into low inequality in the United States. Bet you never thought you'd see the day. And we're about to hit 10 on the development level, which is a considerable advantage over the European Union. We've been really pushing education in the United States pretty damn hard. We should hit 10 in the next couple of months, hopefully. looks like the next 6 or 7 months, which is all good. We'll put the US in a really good position. At that point, what we'll do is we'll start reducing welfare spending. We'll just try and hold it in place at low rather than trying to drive it all the way to zero. I don't want to create some sort of perfectly equal utopia. I then want to grow the economy of the United States to just make it ridiculously wealthy. I've already hit 23.2 trillion. I think we can do a lot better. So we'll keep growing the US. Knowledge will stay important. Military spending will be important. But I want to drive the economy to the moon in both these cases. Meanwhile, the Eurasian Union is taking a break from development, welfare, and knowledge. It's going to stagnate for a little bit in order to push out as much mission control as possible. I'm putting 50% of GDP into mission control ahead of my expansion into Mercury. The reason I'm doing this is, one, I'm over my limit, and two, the greater buffer that I can create, the less vulnerable I am if the Kessler syndrome or solar flare events fire. Anyway, that's a quick catch up after I missed a couple of days, I'm aware, without recording. I will be back soon. Okay, so that's familiar. We've done that before. Boom, headshot. I realized you couldn't actually detain aliens. You can only shoot them. They've changed that from earlier on, so I shot it. As I should. Let's just check. Yep, cool. We're at 1-star rating. And that's because it had actually gone back to 0 before. And now they've gotten a little bit angry again. Meanwhile, Godzilla is finding it very difficult to fight the US military. Makes sense. Unlocked Cybernetics. I'm going to quickly pick up... where is kinetic? I could get kinetic warfare doctrine. I'm tempted to get kinetic warfare doctrine. It's a little bit of a diversion from other useful things. Like high energy lasers are cheap and useful. I could keep pushing. Basically, the question at this point is, do I push for... There's three sort of directions. I can push for starting to amalgamate nations and improve like politics and economy on Earth. I can push for the quantum encryption, which gives you covert operations, which is here. So once quantum computing finishes, I can do quantum encryption and get my extra agent. Mind you, it also gets everyone else their agent, so going to get there eventually. In terms of this one, I don't need advanced neural networks. Superconductors are useful. Arrival law is also useful. Arrival law and... Jesus, just so many things are useful. I'm going to get magnetic force manipulation. Great. We've started to drop a little bit. Okay, we've got cybernetic implants available. So once improved maintenance is finished, we need to get engines, but we also want to get cybernetic implants because that lets us start turning our counselors into cyborgs, which is a nice little upgrade. You'll notice that compared to my demo playthrough at 2027, we're in a bit of a different place. We don't have a fleet, for example, because I haven't emphasized getting a fleet. What we do, and we don't have as much of a monopoly on space as we did in the demo because they've made the game harder. But what we have done that we hadn't done at all in the demo is we've started doing the reach to the inner planets. So that's sort of the difference. This is setting ourselves up for long-term economic growth, whereas in the demo we were mostly focused on rushing a fleet. The United States military is stronger than Godzilla, confirmed. Initial examination of the creature's colossal carcass suggests that it is not an independent entity. Instead, it is linked to the plant-like alien growth around it. Think of that strange vegetation as akin to the vast fungal network that grows beneath woodland soil, and these titans as the mushroom that pushes through the surface. The analogy stops, however, for these giants are not fungal in nature. They are, of course, ambulatory and extremely aggressive. Staggering speed, they reach enormous size. Our current working hypothesis is they do not simply grow, but are themselves part of the aliens' terraforming procedures. Effectively, nearby matter, soil, bedrock, plant, and animal life is absorbed in bulk and then rapidly transformed into creature mass. We cannot yet divine the exact nature of the process, but one thing is clear: if left unchecked, an insurmountable number of these titans would walk the earth. So basically, if you don't keep xenoforming under control, like right now, killing one, fine. I deployed the US military, killed one, fine. But if you don't keep everything under control, then you're going to be dealing with a situation where you get a lot of those things spawning all over the place, and that's going to be a little bit harder to deal with. Just an FYI. Another fun little FYI note, Terra Invicta is full of mean events, particularly once you start expanding into space, and there are technologies that exist only to reduce the danger of those events. Improved maintenance procedures is one of those. This is going to make the events that become more and more common the more you expand your space, much less likely to completely wreck your shit. So, expensive technology would definitely encourage people to pick it up, or at the very least, if you're going to come on to Discord or whatever and complain about events ruining your space presence, just figure out if you've got improved maintenance procedures first. Just a little tip. So just to give myself a bit of an MC buffer and to allow me to de-equip some organizations which give me MC on Earth, I've just created one mission control station in orbit. So this is giving me a net benefit of 3 MC. It's costing me 120 cash a month, and this leads into the point of why you need money. At the start of the game, money is used for barely anything, so you'll just acquire heaps and heaps of it. Later on, you'll realize what it's all there for. It's there to pay upkeep on space assets, which are very, very, very expensive, especially things like operations centers. So here we are. This gives us a little bit of a buffer. I can now pull my MC orgs off my counselors, put better ones on instead, and keep those MC orgs in reserve. So if you ever need to surge your MC count up in response to a bad event, you can suddenly add like 4 or 5 MC by equipping the right orgs. That's my advice. Always keep a little bit of an MC buffer past the earliest point in the game so you can respond to bad events or unexpected losses. And now it's time to improve humanity. We've got cybernetic implants. At the beginning, like basic cybernetic implants aren't anything too special, but you should jump in and do them straight away. You go to the augment menu, and all of a sudden, for cash, you'll find out that you can buy a whole bunch of augmentations. The one that I would not recommend is the loyalty monitor. It lets you always see the loyalty of a counselor, but most people don't like the idea that you implanted something into their bodies designed to tell you how they are feeling. So -5 permanent loyalty isn't really worth it. However, everything else is. Free 1 command point, free science point, free security point, and some of these improve your CP as well. Like things like command, for example, command and administration, all of these things have advantages. So it's just a straight stat advantage for all of your counselors. So I'm going to go through and give everyone everything except for the loyalty monitor. It's going to improve my ability to handle nations. It's going to improve all of my counselors, my science input. It's just a nice, handy little tech to pick up, especially since a lot of enemy actions depend on what the average or the sum of the scores of a particular stat are across your guys. So, for example, the science points in total or the admin points in total across your counselors are important for determining some opposing action chances of success. This is just a great way to upgrade across the board. And in particular, that administration upgrade is, I believe, in some cases going to let me pull the organizations I have on councils that are improving admin, take those off, replace them with more useful ones, and save these for when I get another councillor, because when I get my new councillor, before they level up their administration, I can just dump a bunch of admin orgs on them and fill out their org list straight away, and then slowly develop them up over time, ease them off the training wheels that are these admin organizations. So there we are. I'm going to go through, I'm going to cybernetically augment everyone. It's going to be awesome. And then we'll see how much CP capacity I have when that's done, because we might have the ability to pick up another small country as another MC feeder, or potentially think about, well, there's some other things I'm thinking about as well as this cap increases. So here we are around Mercury. Our Tier 2 station core has completed. So what I did is I built the Tier 1 core, dragged the Tier 2 on Tier 2 core on top and upgraded, so it is now in place. So what I'm doing, this is our first Tier 2 station, so it's got the wide limbs, is I've started putting 2 level 2 power modules on. They'll finish in January, and then I've added a whole bunch of nanofactories and op centers, primarily nanofactories. So the op centers exist to offset slightly the cost of this station, so that when the nanofactories finish, we can produce more stations. The reason I've thrown a couple of nanofactories on here is because they take forever to build. These things take until July 2028 to build, and they can't build more of themselves, so you always have to build them the slow, expensive way. The place I'm going to put most of these, to be honest, is probably Earth orbit in order to get the economy investment bonus, but it's always cheaper to put them out near Mercury. The other advantage of these things is that as long as they're not building any other modules, which they will be a lot of the time, they produce money. That's important. And the reason it's important is because op centers cost so much damn money in order to support. So by building a couple of nanofactories, we're going to take the edge off the financial requirements of spamming op centers. We also have a space dock out here to start building ships. Well, once we've got the nanofactories, we'll build more of these and start producing a Mercury defense fleet as soon as we've got technology for it. I've got Nerva drives, I'm waiting for pulse drives, and then I'm going to pulsar drives. Then I want probably advanced pulsars for my initial design. I want advanced pulsars, diamondoid armor, and copperhead missiles, probably for generation 1. We'll talk about that one. We'll do a whole episode focused on ships when we get to ships. And then something not missile based when we start talking about more offensive design. So there we are. We have a station out near Mercury. It'll be finished in July 2028. So we're getting towards the point where you'd be towards the end of the demo, but you'll get to see us explode out our development around Mercury. A bit slower than it would have been in the demo build, if only because the game now has a slower start, lower CP cap. It's harder to get the resources you need to expand, but here we are. Now, this might give me a depressing amount of information if it turns out they're more powerful than I thought, but we have now turned a counselor from the Protectorate. The best way to do this, by the way, if you're wondering, because usually the chances are sometimes low, I would recommend detaining a counselor and continuing to detain them, investigating them while they're in detention, because you need perfect intelligence. You need to know the true loyalty score of an agent before you can attempt to turn them, and then attempt to turn them while they're in prison and fully surveilled. So let's turn our stance down to 0 on him so he doesn't blow his cover, and let's go have a look at what we know about the Protectorate, because of course we've compromised the servants, now we've compromised the Protectorate. So we have full intelligence on all of their agents, what they're doing, where they are. We've got full information on their resources and their positioning. They're doing pretty well. They've got some incomes. They're negative on water and volatiles. They're only positive on metals and fissiles. So they're still having to ship water and whatnot up to space. They're still sitting on the largest boost of anyone in the game, though. Their goal is, okay, research alien technology, conduct diplomacy with the aliens are their current objectives. You bastards. Relations, they're at war with me and the Resistance. They're in conflict with everyone else. So they're not exactly everyone's favorites. We have a non-aggression pact with the Resistance, by the way. Our non-aggression pacts with everyone else has expired, but we're in tolerance mode, so I'm going to re-sign those non-aggression pacts slowly with Exodus, Academy, and Initiative. I see no reason to fight them. And then in terms of tech, they're currently researching alien technology, 10,000. Interesting. So are the servants. So these guys are researching alien tech. Presumably they can do it without having to blow the aliens up. Well, that's a bit shit. I wonder if I can steal it from them. Settlement mining complex, also useful if I can steal that. Fission platform kit, just keeping an eye on what they're researching. But there we are. Now we can see, the most critical part here is that now we can see all the Protectorate agents around the world and what they're doing, which means, which means if any of them come to mess with us, we should be able to see them and preemptively detain them. Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to make use of my new intelligence network and be back in a second. Oh, and I'm going to try and murder this alien, and I'll tell you why in a second. Now, Perun, you might be asking, what are you doing, mate? Why did you just shoot another Xenos when we talked about the danger of provoking them? Firstly, shut up, you alien collaborator. We're humanity first. What else do you expect us to do when we're fighting aliens? The second thing is that, yes, this is a problem, okay? This bar is an issue, but it will decay over time. And here's my thinking. If there are fewer alien operatives on Earth, there are fewer things they can do which will force us to respond. So, it might actually be better for us to shoot them now and then let that decay than to wait for them to do a whole bunch of stuff that we have to respond to. That's my thinking, at least. Shooting them now is probably the right objective. I am going to ease up a little bit on beating up the servants and the Protectorate for a while, and I think having shot 2 aliens in close proximity to each other, I should be in pretty good shape. I mean, yes, the European Union is invading Iceland to throw out the servants. Yes, I did send an army from the US to help them out, but you know, I'm humanity first. If there's a war on against aliens, I'm going to do something about it. Speaking of doing something about it, this xenoforming in Central Asia gotta go. I'm going to get on that. And we've completed Alien Origins. There are a multitude of theories about where the aliens hail from, running from the plausible to the absurd, maddeningly Our further study of alien debris cannot quite be said to rule anything out. Long-range scanners confirm that yes, there is a large and strikingly regular-shaped mass of similar materials in the deepest reaches of the solar system, suggesting an alien installation, which is what we saw earlier with Deep System Skywatch. However, our scans have also confirmed that not all the substances within the debris are available locally, as it were. Thus, our visitors do indeed have an industrial-scale presence in Sol's system. They almost certainly did not originate from it. Okay. I thought those Skywatch projects were a waste of time when we had aliens right here on our doorstep, but I have to admit they've paid off. We found an alien base in the Kuiper Belt. The question is, where did it come from? The eggheads say that the ship that crashed here was built in the past 2 years, probably in one of those alien habs. There are all sorts of theories being tossed around as to where they came from, but the important part is that they're here, and it looks like they've got no intention of leaving. If we're going to convince them otherwise, getting rid of every alien ship and hab we see could be a good start. Notice there, the past 2 years thing, I presume, means that it was built in 2020 and they're talking about 2 years before the crash. Obviously, 5 years have passed since the initial crash at this point. So there we are. Humanity First is like, yeah, we didn't learn much. We just know that they came from somewhere else. They're building here. They're mostly using local materials. And in order to learn more, we suggest blowing up everything they have. And, maybe we'll learn something more. Can't argue with that logic. And here's an example of why I like Mercury. We've just finished our construction module on the other station, so we could start founding stuff, and it worked out in terms of timing that it's faster to build this in situ, even with only the Tier 1 construction module, than it would be to wait for the nanofactories. That'll be more valuable later on. Here's the thing about Mercury. In Mercury orbit, one level 2 solar generator produces 280 power. These things suck up 40 each. These operation centers. So 1, 4, 8, 12, 16, 2, 2, 4, 2, 8. So with 2 solar generators, you can run an entire station, 3, 6, 9, 10 operation centers. Now the whole station costs 3 to upkeep. Think about that for a moment. In Earth orbit, for not that much less investment, only a little bit less investment because power modules are cheaper to maintain than these operation centers, one orbital will produce you a net +3 mission control. It costs 3 to run the station. You can put 6 of these operation centers in place, you get a +3. In Mercury, it's +7, which is much, 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 much more efficient. So I'm going to produce 2 of these stations. Going crazy with producing more of them is probably going to bankrupt you, but I'm going to equip 1 MC org to get up just a little bit more capacity, and then in 180 days, so the middle of 2028, we should have a net +14 swing of MC our way. Which will allow us to absolutely explode our settlements. Now, another place you can put your stuff is we can actually put stuff on the planet itself and mine while we do it. Now, they're slightly less efficient in terms of slots, but you get to mine as part of the process. The mining does, however, take up an MC point of its own. Mines cost an MC point. So it's slightly less efficient to do it on the surface, but hey, you want to claim these anyway, you want to get some mining done. So if there are any good locations, by all means, claim them, mine them, go for your life. In this case, this 4.4 fissile, 4.8 noble, 6.3 volatile, this is okay. Oh, and 47.1 base. This is an okay site. It's even got 2 water, so it can basically pay for itself. So we could drop a tier 2 settlement on the planet as soon as we have the mission control for it, and that can build a combination of operation centers, but also the mine itself. So this is Mercury in a nutshell. It's perfect for no other reason than because it is as far away as it is possible to be for the aliens. So there is no body in the solar system that is more annoying for the aliens to attack than Mercury. It's more delta V intensive and more time intensive to get to Mercury than it is to get to Earth. Like, it's a real pain in the butt for the aliens to get here, and if they do head your way, you get plenty of warning time. But the second factor is just in terms of power efficiency, nothing can match it because the sun is right there. So there we are. That's my Mercury strat. I'm going to start filling up orbital slots and base slots. Mercury must be humanity first territory. It does not produce the resources Mars does. That's Mars' job, produce mining goods. Mercury is here To be a secure station where Humanity First can station all of its space assets as safe as they can possibly be, away from Earth, away from spies. That's another good point. Things that are in Earth orbit are vulnerable to enemy counselors taking off from the planet, moving to your stations without having to use ships to transport them. Very hard to interdict. They need a ship to transit to Mercury, and the AI is usually not going to do that. So you're much, much safer from enemy counselors messing with your stations if you've got as much stuff as possible stationed around Mercury or Venus, or even Mars is safer than Earth orbit. Earth orbit is there for a reason, it's very valuable, but there's a reason to be in Mercury orbit, all I'm saying. And this is probably a good place to close out for this episode. Humans arrive on Mercury, standing safely inside the shadow line of a great polar crater. Our colonists are building humanity's first home on this scorched world. 500 research and 100 influence, which we have a lot of at the moment, as we do science, but I'll take it. Which means we instantly complete Solid Core Fission Reactor 3, and we have completed our HAB module on the surface of Mercury. I will pick a technology to pick up next, but for now, let's just go look at our base. Pretty basic layout. We've finished the power generators. What's still in progress now is the mining complex itself, as well as all of the op centers, which will more than pay for it. This is not bad. Now, later on, we can get things like farms and whatnot to offset the maintenance costs of some of these things in terms of resources, but for the moment, we've got what we need to make it work. We have a presence on the surface of Mercury, and the aliens are currently 2 out of 5 pissed off, which I think is okay. We're suppressing the alien life forms. One thing I want to do next, once I've got the cap for it, is I'm actually considering setting up an orbital around Earth and doing some serious interface research boosting. So if we look at Earth itself, what have we got? Most of the slots are filled, so I think that's right. I think we're going to have to add an LEO orbital, just reserve a little more real estate because we want to get a whole bunch of those interface bonuses going. And I'm not sure I want to risk the AI taking them all. What have we got? One dangerous cloud, one dangerous cloud. Okay. Now we can always upgrade our existing ones as well, but that's what I'm thinking. In any case, let's do a quick whip around the world because I like to do an update occasionally before we close out. India is doing really, really well in a sense. I haven't been improving the democracy score or the inequality. Those are still a problem, as is cohesion. It's dressing towards 4, which is 4 is okay. What we need to do to improve that is improve our popularity, which is about 50%. Also, as soon as I've got the CP cap for it, I want to throw the protectorate out of India. I want to have full control. What we are succeeding in doing in India is growing the economy incredibly quickly. We're generating $311 billion worth of extra GDP every month. Like we've put the Indian economy into overdrive. The per capita GDP, in terms of purchasing power parity, is now 9,365 per person. It's increasing hugely quickly because of the huge economy investment plus the accumulated 87% bonus to investments for economy. I've really gone pretty heavy on that. If we put some nano factories in orbit, we can juice those numbers higher. So India is becoming a secondary economic engine next to the United States, which is happily ticking along, doing its thing. Ignore the downward arrows. It's just every cycle when the assistance from Nero is not firing, everything goes down at the end of the month and then jumps up. This is actually all a way understatement. The US is doing fantastic, and we're going to keep growing it. Inequality is now 2.8, which is low, which means I can probably ease off on welfare even more, and probably knowledge as well, because the economy is already pretty bloody advanced. We've cracked into 10.1 in order to put even more investment probably into the economy and the military. Want to get that tech level up. It's crested 4.8. Rookie numbers want to go higher. Eurasia, we're not going as far on the economy and inequality. Again, we're making slight gains in some places, but really what we're doing is building up mission control. There's now 13, of which we claim 10, and we're going to keep building. So MC planetary based is cheaper in terms of upkeep than space based, but it's much slower to develop than space based stuff. So we're going to build a little more MC here, and then we're going to switch the Eurasian Union over to more of a research engine by rapidly democratizing the nation. And that's basically our trio. India is going to be our secondary economic motor. What we're doing is we're running GDP up first so that people don't get too angry at us. If you increase democracy too much, but you don't increase wealth, people get annoyed. So I want to increase wealth first, then increase democracy and education. I'm also thinking, because I'm researching currently the first of the diplomatic technologies towards great nation annexation, I'm looking at options to expand India, possibly by grabbing Pakistan and Bangladesh, because the more population I add to India, the more bang for my buck I get on these economy investments. India already has, at this stage, a larger population than China. Our economy is, half the size, but we'll catch them. The Protectorate's only putting 7% of their economy into 7% of their economy into increasing GDP. We can do better than that. They're also going to have problems. They have extreme inequality. What's their rest value? The rest value for cohesion in China is 0 due to the massive inequality and everything. Wow. Okay. The Protectorate is slowly democratizing China, which is getting them more science out of it. But if they keep going this way, that cohesion is going to steadily drop into the sweet spot at first, and then it's going to keep dropping. So we'll keep an eye on that one. There we go. They're up to 4 nukes. Soon they'll be at 5. Unfortunate. But we can build India up to be an economic competitor to China for a fraction of the cost, and I like the way that sounds. So that's our plan. And in terms of space, you know the rest. We have a mild presence on the moon. We're doing big resource production out of Mars. Mars is driving our resource production. And then, of course, on Mercury, low Mercury orbit, we should have the first of these nano factories coming up in July. The first operation centers start in May, which will start to ease our MC burden, but we'll have to keep an eye on how the aliens respond. I have no idea how much MC you can have in use without the aliens getting pissed. We will all find out together, but I'm starting to get the text together for at least defensive fleet operations, so hopefully we'll get there soon. Take care, see you soon.